What does a guitar actually sound like? For a lot of us, it's the sound of strings vibrating over wood, maybe clean, maybe crunchy and loud. But for Carlos Santana, the guitar isn't an object, it's a voice. It's his direct line to the divine. In his hands, 6 strings can sing, cry, preach, and pray. For over 5 decades, this Mexican-American virtuoso hasn't just played music, he's channeled something universal. He stirred the fiery rhythms of his Latin heritage together with the raw heart of the blues and the far-out explorations of psychedelic rock. Cooking up a sound that's instantly recognizable and eternally his, Santana's music is its own language, spoken with those searing, sustained notes that just hang in the air like a prayer, and with rhythms that wake up something primal inside. All of us. But here's the thing, no one learns to speak in a vacuum. Every artist, no matter how revolutionary, starts as a student. They're a collection of their experiences, a patchwork of everyone who came before them. Santana, a deeply spiritual man, has always been open about his influences. He doesn't just see them as musicians he looks up to. He sees them as spiritual guides, prophets who showed him the way. They taught him that frets and strings weren't walls. They were doorways, he once said. The guitar is a voice, and every great guitarist has something different to say. These players didn't just play notes. They channeled divine energy through their instruments. So, when a man who has made a career of channeling that exact same energy shares his personal list of guitar gods, it's more than just a list. It's a map. It's a blueprint that shows you the soul of his art. These aren't just his favorite players. They are the architects of his sound, the pillars that the legend of Santana was built on. So, who are the 6 souls who shaped the spirit of Carlos Santana? Who are the masters that this master still turns to for inspiration? The answers might just change the way you hear that iconic, lyrical, and sacred tone forever. Let's jump in a time machine for a second. The year is 1967. A young Carlos Santana is still finding his way in the wild, revolutionary music scene of San Francisco. He's at the legendary Fillmore West, and the air is thick with incense and the feeling of change. On stage is a man who isn't just playing the blues, he's living inside them. Every single note from his cherry red Gibson, a guitar he calls Lucille, is a sermon on pain, joy, and everything in between. This is B.B. King, and for young Santana, watching him is a life-changing epiphany. He said later that the second B.B. played his first note, he got it. The guitar wasn't just an instrument. It was a voice that could laugh, cry, and preach. That night set Santana on a quest to find his own voice. But what he'd soon find out was that his voice wasn't just one sound, but a conversation, a cosmic dialogue between the blues of men like B.B. King and the wild, uncharted territory of players who were breaking all the rules, and one of those rule breakers was about to change everything, not just for Santana, but for the world. His name was Jimi Hendrix, before Santana had that liquid sustain. Before he fused Latin fire with psychedelic rock, there was the blues. And for Carlos, like for so many others of his generation, the undisputed king of the blues was one man, B.B. King. Santana often gives King a title of ultimate respect, the chairman of the board. It's a name that doesn't just imply mastery, but a kind of foundational authority. B.B. King didn't just play the blues. He pretty much wrote the rule book on electric blues guitar. Growing up, Santana and his peers guys like Michael Bloomfield and Eric Clapton were all chasing B.B. King. Santana described it as being held in a headlock by B.B.'s sound, a loving grip you couldn't escape because it just felt so right. So what was so magnetic about his playing? According to Santana, it was his honesty. You could hear the raw, unfiltered heart in every note. Santana first saw him play in 1967 at the Fillmore West, a moment he calls life-changing. He saw firsthand how B.B. could say more with one perfect note than most guitarists could with 100. This was the idea of emotional efficiency, the lesson that the soul of the music lives in the space between the notes. This became a cornerstone of Santana's entire philosophy. He learned from B.B. that you don't have to play 1,000,000 miles an hour to be powerful. Real power comes from being emotionally direct. When Santana bends a string and holds it, letting it sing with that violin-like sustain, you're hearing the ghost of B.B. King. You're hearing that lesson. Make every note count. Make it sacred. This influence wasn't just philosophical. B.B. King's masterful string bending and his signature butterfly vibrato were things every guitarist studied. While Santana developed his own, often straighter sustain, the core idea of making the note sing is a direct inheritance from King. He taught Santana that the guitar could be an extension of the human voice. When you listen to a B.B. King solo, you can almost hear the words he isn't singing. His guitar, Lucille, wasn't just a tool. She was his duet partner. Santana completely absorbed this. His guitar doesn't just play melodies. It tells stories. When King passed away, Santana said B.B. was now on the other side with giants like John Coltrane and Bob Marley. For him, B.B. King was more than a guitarist. He was the rich soil from which Santana's own colorful musical flower would grow. If B.B. King gave Santana his raw, emotional heart, Wes Montgomery gave him his sophisticated, elegant mind. For a young guitarist soaking in the blues, discovering. Wes Montgomery was, as Santana put it, like discovering a whole new galaxy of possibilities. Hearing Wes for the first time was like stepping inside a Rolls-Royce. It was all class, tone, and an effortless cool that was just mind-blowing. Santana's introduction to Montgomery came in the mid-60s, back when he was playing hooky from school to hang out at friends' houses and listen to records. He remembers one day hearing 3 albums that changed his life: the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's, Jimi Hendrix's Bold as Love, and an album by Wes Montgomery. The sound of Wes's guitar immediately floored him. He said it sounded so evolved with class and elegance. It was a completely different path forward. What hooked Santana wasn't just the smooth tone, but the revolutionary technique. Wes famously played with the fleshy part of his thumb instead of a pick, which created a warm, round sound. That alone was a revelation, but his signature move was playing in octaves hitting the same note an octave apart at the same time. It made his guitar sound huge, like 2 instruments playing in perfect unison. You can hear this all over Santana's work. He often uses octaves to make his melodies stronger and give them a singing quality, a clear nod to the jazz master. He even said that on Black Magic Woman, he consciously mixed in some Wes Montgomery elegance with the grittier blues feel, but it went deeper than technique. Santana admired what he called a lack of ego in Montgomery's playing. He'd listen to albums like Smoking at the Half Note for hours, amazed at how Wes made every single note count. There was no wasted motion, no flash for the sake of flash, just pure, intelligent musical conversation. This idea reinforced the lesson he learned from B.B. King, but from a different angle. Where B.B. taught him the emotional weight of a note, Wes taught him its melodic and harmonic perfection. When Wes Montgomery died suddenly of a heart attack in 1968 at just 45 years old, Santana felt the loss like a death in the family. His first reaction was to go out, buy more of his albums, and just drive around San Francisco filling the air with Wes's music. For Santana, Wes didn't just play jazz, he played joy. He gave Carlos a new vocabulary, allowing him to build the complex, melodically rich architecture that defines his most iconic work. So, if B.B. King laid the foundation and Wes Montgomery designed the building, Jimi Hendrix was the lightning strike that set the whole thing on fire with cosmic energy. For Carlos Santana, Jimi wasn't just another guitarist. He was a force of nature that completely rewrote the rules of the electric guitar. He wasn't just playing music. He was channeling the cosmos. Santana saw Hendrix perform many times, but a couple of moments stand out. The first was the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967. He watched Hendrix pull sounds from his Stratocaster that no one had ever dreamed of. It was a performance of pure, unapologetic freedom. And when Jimi famously set his guitar on fire, Santana didn't see a rock and roll stunt. He saw a spiritual act, an artist becoming one with his instrument, and sacrificing it in a blaze of glory. The second key moment was at a festival in 1969 where Santana's own band performed. He described Hendrix's set that day as beyond superlatives, the best he'd ever seen him. Hendrix was one of the few musicians Who could play with unbelievable speed and dexterity while still conveying incredible depth and feeling? The influence on Santana's sound is impossible to miss. Hendrix was a pioneer in using the studio and effects pedals to sculpt sound. Santana soaked up this spirit of exploration. His willingness to use sustain and feedback not as noise, but as expressive musical tools come straight from the Hendrix playbook. Camille showed him that the guitar's voice could be bent, twisted, and sculpted into something totally otherworldly. Beyond the music, there was a personal connection. They were friends, and Santana cherishes a compliment Hendrix once gave him. He remembers being invited to Jim's studio, and when he arrived, Hendrix himself came out, paid his cab fare, shook his hand, and said, "Great choice of notes, man." Imagine getting to. While Santana's sound is rooted in American music, the fiery soul of his playing beats to a different drum one with deep ties to his Latin heritage. And when it comes to the guitarists who fan that flame, his choice is really revealing. He often looks past the more famous flamenco legend Paco de Lucia and names another as a key influence, Manitas de Plata, which means little hands of silver, was a French Gitano flamenco guitarist who was the embodiment of the raw, untamed spirit of the art form. This guy wasn't trained in a conservatory. He was a force of nature. His music came from the passionate improvisational traditions of gypsy culture. For Santana, Manitas de Plata represented pure authenticity and raw, unfiltered emotion. His playing wasn't about being perfect. It was about conveying a feeling so powerful it was almost painful. It was the sound of life itself. Santana has said that the language of guitarists like Manitas de Plata became an obsession for him to learn. What he offered was a language not of the head, but of the heart. His music was driven by dunde, that mysterious quality in flamenco that refers to a state of pure, heightened emotion and authenticity. It's a spirit you can't teach. You can only feel it. You can hear Manitas de Plata's ghost in the percussive, rhythmic way Santana attacks the strings. He can be incredibly smooth and lyrical, but he also digs in with a fiery, almost aggressive right hand, creating accents that are as much a part of the rhythm as the drums. This approach, where the guitar is both a melodic and rhythmic weapon, is a hallmark of flamenco. That's the spirit of Manitas de Plata, just translated through a rock and roll filter. Santana's choice here really shows his preference for feel over pure technicality. While Paco de Lucia was a technician of blinding speed, Manitas de Plata was all about raw power and rhythmic drive. By embracing an artist like him, Santana was connecting to his own cultural roots. The fusion of this raw flamenco energy with blues, rock, and jazz is what makes his music so special. Manitas de Plata might not be a household name for rock fans, but for Carlos Santana, he was a vital link to the passionate, untamed spirit that gives his music its fire, while B.B. King may have been the chairman of the board in Santana's blues school. The blues is a big country. To really get Santana's emotional depth, you have to go to the west side of Chicago and the raw, intense world of another blues master, Otis Rush. If B.B. King's blues was majestic, Otis Rush's was a desperate cry from the soul. His place on this list shows Santana's love for the darker, more intense side of the blues. Otis Rush was a key figure in the West Side sound, a style of Chicago blues that was grittier and often in a minor key. As a lefty who played a right-handed guitar flipped upside down, his whole approach was unique. He had a way of shaking notes with a wide, dramatic vibrato that sounded like a voice trembling right on the edge of tears. That raw, almost painful emotion resonated deeply with Santana. Santana has often name-dropped Otis Rush as a key ingredient in his musical recipe. When his band started playing Black Magic Woman, which was written by another one of his heroes, Peter Green, Santana decided to inject it with his own flavor. He thought, I can bring a little bit of Otis Rush here and a little bit of Wes Montgomery here. That comment tells you everything. He was blending the raw fire of Rush with the cool elegance of Montgomery to create his signature sound. The soul of Black Magic Woman, especially in those darker, more intense moments, is pure Otis Rush. The influence is clearest in Santana's phrasing and his use of tension. Otis Rush was a master of building suspense, leaving space that would make you hold your breath before unleashing a flurry of notes like an emotional dam breaking. Santana learned this art from him. His solos aren't just a stream of notes. They're stories with peaks and valleys, quiet moments followed by explosive releases. In fact, Santana's respect was so deep that he reportedly paid royalties to Otis Rush out of his own pocket for the inspiration on Black Magic Woman, even though he didn't have to legally. That act says everything about his respect for his musical ancestors. B.B. King taught him what a soulful note was, but Otis Rush showed him the power of a note that sounds like it's about to break. He gave Santana a different shade of blue, a deeper, more turbulent color that added incredible emotional complexity to his music. The final guitarist in Santana's Sacred Circle is different. This bond wasn't just forged over records. It was built on shared stages, spiritual journeys, and a deep personal friendship. This man was his neighbor at Woodstock and a true kindred spirit. He was Jerry Garcia, the heart and soul of the Grateful Dead. The relationship between Carlos Santana and Jerry Garcia was a two-way street, built on mutual respect and the shared belief that music was a spiritual, communal thing. Santana didn't admire Garcia for his blistering technique. He admired him for his boundless creativity and his generous, conversational playing style. Garcia wasn't a soloist who played on top of a band. He was a weaver who threaded his guitar lines through the music, creating a rich, interconnected tapestry of sound. This had a huge impact on Santana. He learned the art of the musical conversation from Garcia. Watching the Grateful Dead, you could see a kind of psychic connection between the musicians, a democratic jam where anyone could take the lead at any moment. This clicked with Santana's own band, which was built around the interplay between guitar, organ, and a powerhouse percussion section. The long, exploratory jams that define a Santana show owe a great deal to the improvisational spirit of Jerry Garcia. Of course, their most famous interaction is the stuff of Woodstock legend. As Santana and his band were nervously waiting to go on, a friendly Jerry Garcia offered him some psychedelics to calm his nerves. Santana, thinking he had hours to kill, accepted. Moments later, a stage manager told him his band was on next. What followed was one of the most iconic performances in rock history, delivered while Santana was, in his words, higher than an astronaut's butt. He remembers the neck of his guitar feeling like a snake and having to pray just to stay in time and in tune, but that story is more than just rock folklore. Santana sees it as a profound spiritual test. He believed that experience helped him shed his ego and just trust the music. It became a core part of his artistic philosophy. Get out of the way and let the music play you. For Santana, Jerry Garcia was more than a guitarist. He was a cosmic brother, a fellow traveler. Garcia showed him that music could be a playground, a sanctuary, and a way to create collective joy. In Jerry Garcia, Carlos Santana found a reflection of his own deepest belief, that music's ultimate purpose is to bring people together. So, those are the 6 pillars of Carlos Santana's sonic temple. It's a constellation of brilliant souls, whose light showed him the way. From the bedrock honesty of B.B. King to the elegant architecture of Wes Montgomery. From the raw flamenco fire of Manitas de Plata to the tormented cry of Otis Rush, and from the cosmic explosion of Jimi Hendrix, who gave him permission to be fearless, to the gentle communal spirit of Jerry Garcia, who reminded him that music is always a conversation. What's so clear when you look at this list is that Santana isn't just a musician. He's a master chef. He didn't just copy his heroes. He absorbed their spirit and blended them into something completely new and completely his own. He took the soul of the blues, the class of jazz, the fire of Latin music, and the freedom of psychedelic rock and fused them into a single voice. That iconic singing tone is the sound of B.B. King's heart, Wes Montgomery's mind, Hendrix's spirit, Rush's pain, Manitas de Plata's passion, and Garcia's friendship, all flowing through the fingers of one man. The 6 guitarists didn't just teach Carlos Santana how to play. They taught him why he plays. They showed him that the guitar could be a sacred tool to heal, to elevate, and to connect us all. Their spirits are woven into the very DNA of his sound, and through his own incredible journey, Carlos Santana has become a giant himself, inspiring a new generation to pick up a guitar and find their own sacred sound. What do you think of Santana's list? Who are the guitarists who shaped your musical soul? Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear who would make your list of all-time greats. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.